Hi there, here we go again. This little demonstration is very optional. It really just is addressed to anybody who currently can throw on the wheel and does have access to a wheel. We can't, in this time of COVID, have any kind of wheel throwing classes because the social distancing thing just all falls apart. So but I did, as we do this Mimbres pottery and we're dealing with an open bowl, I thought some of you may be wheel throwing artists and have access to a wheel. So I thought I would demonstrate this for you. And if you're not or not interested, just don't have to watch this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to throw a few of these open bowls on the wheel and kind of show you how I would approach that. And you can decide if you want to do it that way or the way I've already demonstrated using the slab approach. So I'm going to turn this camera around a little bit and you'll see the, first of all, you need hula hoops if you're going to do this. There's the wheel, and I think this angle will be really helpful to see what's going on the whole time. That's my theory. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to settle in here. And I think you'll be able to see everything that goes on, which is great. So to throw an open bowl or a large plate, you have to have a bat that's fitted to the wheel one way or another. In this case, I'm using bat pins, and that's how I will get my bat to stay where it needs to stay on the wheel. That's not it. There we go. And so I'm going to attach this, and here, we'll put this up here a little bit. That's pretty good. And I just want to tighten up these bat pins a little bit. Good. And now I'm going to start the throwing. And you'll see the process here, fairly straightforward. And I'll have to do a separate demonstration on trimming these, but we'll start with just the throwing. I'm just going to get the resin of dust and ash from the fires off of these bats here. And then I want it to be a little bit dry. My fantastic fashion sense wants me to protect my pair of shorts here, so I'll do that. And then I'll just I'll try to talk louder because the wheel does have quite a bit of noise in the motor there. So I'm going to start by throwing down a ball of clay. This is about 5 or 6 pounds would be my guess. And when you have a larger, this isn't that large, but for some of you it may be a fairly large amount. So the way to center a large amount of clay is when I'm centering, I like to work at top speed. So I have the wheel on full pedal to the metal. I'm going very fast, and I'm doing what's called collaring in. I'm squeezing the clay in, and I'm making a very tapered, as you can see, a very tapered area. I never undercut it, but I'm tapering it up. And then this area becomes very, very easy to center. It's just about half a pound of clay. So anybody can center half a pound of clay. So I'm centering that, and I'm pushing downward. And it requires you to be increasingly firm in what you're doing. But what you can do is you want to kind of take your elbow and lock it into your hip a little bit so that you're very steady, because the only time it really wants to resist and kick is right when you get down to the bottom. And just to move this clay around a bit, to loosen it up, get it ready to move for me, I'm going to do that twice. I'm going to press the clay up into a cone, not once. I hope I'm not blocking. I don't think I am. Okay. Not once, but so my hands push downward and in and squeeze the clay and then turn and pull it up. And that's how we do that. And then I'll go ahead and start bringing it down into the final centering. You can hear that rattling sound, which is the bat wiggling a little bit on the pins. So the only way to counter that is to center with both hands. So I'll go back and forth. This clay is a little bit stiff, but what I want to do is I want to compress. Any plate or bowl is 90% compression, because you may know this, that when you're throwing a form, the centering part is not only organizing the clay, but it's determining the footprint. And if you have a piece like a wide open bowl or a plate, it's mostly the bottom. It's mostly the bottom section. So that footprint is what you're trying to determine with the centering. And so it's almost all centering, and very little of it is about pulling up. So I'm going to push down in the center. And the other thing to remember is that we're targeting a bowl, a soft, round bowl, not a flat plate in the middle. I don't want to make it flat in the middle. I want to have it actually, the lowest point of this should be the center, right in the center of it. So that's what I'm thinking about as I'm compressing. And of course, compressing always makes the clay stronger and stronger, which is a good thing. So I want to make a very gentle curve in the middle, because all the Mimbres bowls have that kind of curved quality. And this section, we're all about the Mimbres. Really intriguing to be contemplating this. There's so much freedom of contemplation and thought, because in these prehistoric cultures, you really don't know exactly what was going on, because it's prehistoric. There wasn't any writing. And the professional speculation by some of the anthropologists is intriguing, but you also have to kind of filter it, because, back in the late 1800s, mid 1800s, the anthropologists were almost entirely men, though there were some women involved in the Mimbres excavations. So that's one, the concept of what is masculine, what is feminine in the mid 1800s starts to color their thoughts and observations. I'd love to hear from, we have a student who is an anthropology professor, Jason, and he may have some helpful thoughts on this. But that is an interesting idea. You can see, I should talk about what I'm doing here. I'm compressing down with my rib, my curved rib, and I'm reinforcing that lovely curve that I want to have in the whole bowl. But I'm also, as I'm doing this, I'm compressing the clay down for more strength. And that's about as far as I can go. I want to remember that I have to keep it thick enough at the center here to allow for a foot. So I am doing that. So as I was saying about this there's one article that I've made available to you from the University of Minnesota, which talks a little bit about some of these issues. I don't know if it's that article or another one that talks about how one of the main anthropologists dealing with the Mimbres had some very, at the time, very current concepts about race that now would be basically termed racist. So that's also coloring some of the ideas that were developed about the Mimbres. So we really need to see what we want to learn and think about these. But what we do know is that these are amazing painted bowls, and we can benefit from enjoying those paintings. A thought I had, which I included in my comments in the module, is that there seems to be a real lovely kind of synchronicity or commonality between the Mimbres themes and the themes that you would find in the great cave paintings at Altamira or Lascaux. Okay, so now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this right angle wood rib here, this one right here, and I'm just going to dig underneath the clay here to get a little of the clay on the outside. And this will be my throwing clay. This will be the clay that I get to pull up into the remainder of the bowl. But again, I don't want it too thin. And that's part of my idea here, is that I want these bowls to have a bit of heft to them, not to be, you know, kind of like I'm not making Delftware. And already we're sort of off the reservation, in a sense, off the reservation. Oh, I can't believe I even said that. Oh my God, that's amazing. Got to keep that. We're sort of getting out of bounds here a little bit because these were not thrown. These were hand-built pieces, probably coil-built. So we're already imposing our own abilities and interests on this if we approach it this way. So now I'm going to just start throwing and pulling the clay into a finished bowl shape. And one of my temptations will be to finish the lip with a little bit of a flourish or an indent. And I want to resist that personally because, again, the Mimbres bowls were extremely plain. They were very much an expression of, they really had all their kind of artistic innovation focused on the painting. So it was never really about the form. So the bowls are very plain in their shaping. So let me just do maybe a little bit more pulling, get a little larger bowl here. And I really think of this, as I study the Mimbres, I really think of this particular part of it as the same as a painter might stretch a canvas. Very much the same thing, that what we're doing here is we're stretching the canvas for our later composition, for our painting. And I'm compressing the rim here. I'm just pushing back down on the rim. And that's a really important thing to do because these shapes, whether they're hand-built or wheel-thrown, going to be a lot of pressure on the rim towards the idea of perhaps cracking. So we want to press that down a bit. I'm just going to do a little bit more here. So you can see that primarily I centered the whole mass, and then I dug underneath to lift up clay to do this work here. And now what I want to do is just set the final form inside here and get a nice smooth and to that end I'm going to move this rib very slowly so that I do not end up leaving spiral throwing marks. I want it to be just really smooth and ready for the painting. And that's how that will go. Slow moving just to keep it all very much. And then, of course, at this stage, I want to be careful because it's soft clay and there's nothing holding that up. Nothing at all holding that up. So it's quite cantilevered. It's a very narrow angle. So I'm going to be careful not to do anything to encourage it to fall. Do not want to do that. So there's a bowl. The last step for me is to get a cutoff wire. And to, when you throw on a bat, my practice is to always, I don't want to move it off the bat, but I do want to cut it off the bat. So I will use my cutoff wire and just make sure to separate it from the bat, and then it's done. And I'll go through that. I'll review it one more time for you, but there is basically what it looks like. Here's a Mimbres style bowl, and it's convenient here, maybe, yeah, to put it right up on this shelf back here. I'm going to put it back up on there. And let's try that one more time, just to show you how that works. Just to review a little bit. This is the part where, if we were face to face, I would ask you if you had any questions. And of course, if you do have any questions about this, you can email me. If you're working at home and you're having some difficulty, we could even do something where you would, we could do some a Zoom meeting, you and I could watch you throw and help you that way if possible. So I just tightened the bat pins, putting a bat on there, and again, washing off the dust and ash. A lovely green something on here. And I want it to be relatively dry because, as you may know, too much moisture and the clay will not stick. So again, I'm going to throw the clay down with some velocity in order to get it to stick on there. And then the first move, I didn't really talk about this, but the first move that I'm doing as I start to cone it up, the first thing I do is just push it down towards the bat to make sure I've really got a nice adherence, because I don't want it to be lifted, pulled right off. There's a little bit of coning. And we'll do a little bit more of that. The clay, again, is quite stiff. And the hand-built pieces I made, and perhaps some of these, will become the blanks where I'll demonstrate some painting techniques. So you can see I've got it coned off, and now I'm starting the final centering again. Bring it down. Right here is where, the very end, it really wants to kick out and be uncentered, and you have to be kind of stable to keep it in control there. So I just put my elbow right in my hip there and lock it in. So again, I'm compressing. That's what it's all about here. To make this style of bowl for me, this is my approach. So you can see it's just a big compressed disc. And now I'm going to start thinking about getting that dish shape. Again, more compression, but I'm going to compress in the center. I'm going to move my palm out slightly, letting up the weight to create a little indent that will actually be the beginning of the bowl form. I'm really excited to see what you do with your painting. I'm going to try to get one more PowerPoint up. I was reading in one of the articles that I posted that some of the descendants of the Mimbres might be potters like Maria Martinez and Lucy Lewis. So I thought I'd put up some of those images, and so we can look at those. So now I'll just finish up here, And I'm gonna, once again, go into the centering. Not the center, I'm compressing with the rib now, and I'm also reinforcing that dip. Again, I'd say in the very center, it's at least 1 inch thick, and that's so that I can trim a decent foot. I figure that the pot itself will be, oh, 1/2 inch maybe thick. So at 1 inch thick, that's only 1/2 inch for the foot at the center, and then I can go a little deeper at the actual foot itself. So now I'm doing that thing with the, I'm taking my pointed wood rib, a right angle wood rib, and I'm digging right under, and my wood rib is right against the back, so I'm just lifting up the clay. And now I have this section here that's lifted up, and that gives me something to begin to throw. So I'll slow things down a little bit for the actual pulling part of this. And I'll begin to pull up the walls again. And there's a basic rule in throwing for me. When you're pulling up the walls, whether it's a cup form or a vase or a bowl, this first pull, it doesn't matter how much clay you carry up, it doesn't matter how much you move, but you do want to make sure that at the very bottom you've taken, that this first pull is even and that it's thin, that there's some thinness at the bottom, because if you leave thickness at the bottom and thinness at the top, this is actually the reverse. If you do that, what will end up happening is you'll never get that clay up in the air. So now I'm pulling slower again, lifting up. So I'm happy to be on this adventure with you all of this teaching online. Nothing I ever planned on doing, but we're in it, we're doing it, we're all in this together, and I would appreciate any suggestions and comments you have. I have not put a tremendous amount of energy into making this appear super polished and professional Hollywood style. Just for a couple of reasons. One, of course, I don't have that kind of time trying to do all this, but I'm also interested in presenting the real experience, and I think I want you to get to know me. And while I am professional, perhaps polished is not what I've ever been accused of. While in Japan, I was given a name. My name is, of course, Mark, and Maru in Japanese can be interpreted to mean becoming polished. So there was a point in which that was kind of my moniker, becoming polished. So maybe that's what these videos are, is they're becoming polished. Stay tuned. So there we go. There's another one pretty much ready. I want to do a little more work on the inside there, and I have compressed this lip a little bit more of that. There's really no such thing as too much. And I'm careful not to leave any really clearly identifiable form, or just really, I'm not going to put any really beautiful flary lip or something out there, because again, we're Mimbres, we're following the footsteps. Later, if you get into this and you do this and you really start to enjoy it, you might decide to do a series of these, as I have shown you the series by, just brilliant series by the amazing artist Al Farrell. And if you haven't seen his work, I recommend you go to his website and check it out. His reliquary are just breathtaking. They're just astonishing works of passion, perseverance, artfulness, and just impossible attention to detail and rigor. He's just such an amazing artist that way. So there is my finished piece. It's got a nice, consistent, shallow curve to it, which is what I'm after. And that will be how we make Mimbres bowls. Again, remember, always want to separate it from the bat, and then we will lift it off and put it up on my shelf that's just immediately behind me. So that's the story of how to throw Mimbres. Again, this is not required. I've shown you how to build them with slab approach, slab technique, and that is all that is expected. But if you are someone who works on the wheel and have access to a wheel, this might be helpful information. So until next time, stay safe and make art.